Hi, welcome to this week's Authors Love Readers podcast, where we delve into the stories behind the stories. We're asking authors questions, some of them fun, some of them serious, and from their answers, you're going to learn things you never knew about the people who write the stories you love. My name is Patricia McLinn. I'm your host and designated question asker.
I'm Julie Moffett, and I'm an author who loves readers.
Now, let's start the show. Hi, welcome to this week's Authors Love Readers podcast. Our guest is Julie Moffett, and Julie and I have known each other longer than we're going to acknowledge. We first met through the Washington Romance Writers group. I was a longtime member until I moved away from the region, and Julie still is a member. It's a great group. So, Julie, tell us a little bit about what you write.
Well, I published my first book in 1993, so I'm totally dating myself. It was historical romance. I wrote several more romances, time travels and historical romances and historical paranormal romances until around 2000. Well, in 2010, I published my first mystery novel. And now a long-running mystery series, and now I also have a YA spinoff of that mystery series.
Oh, good. We're going to get into more about that later. For now, let's let the readers get to know you a little bit better just as a person. Earlier in life, did you have something that you really fretted over that now you can just say, who cares?
You mean something that stressed me out that now I don't care about?
Yeah.
I would say that I used to be really worried about having everything super organized in my house. And I'm a type A personality, so I like to be very organized. And then with kids, you just can't. It doesn't matter how much you organize it. It's always going to become unorganized. So I've really relaxed my standards on organization. So I think that's probably the biggest thing for me.
I'm not surprised that you're an organized person. Okay, what's your favorite taste?
Ooh, I like salty.
Oh, do you also like sugary, or is it just the salty?
I like sugar. I'm not going to lie. I like sugar. If I had a choice between candy and chips, I would take chips.
Do you have a favorite color, and why? Does it have certain associations?
My favorite color is yellow, and my bedroom is even painted in yellow. I just think it's really sunshiny and happy, and when I see yellow, it makes me happy. So that's why it's my favorite color.
I like yellow a lot too. Do you wear it as a color?
I don't, because I have blonde hair, and blonde and yellow and orange are not good mixes. So I don't ever wear it, but I like to have it painted on stuff.
Me too. I don't wear it very often at all, but I have a lot of yellow in the walls, the ones that aren't off-white.
Right.
Do you have a saying that you used to hear your mother or father saying and now you hear it coming out of your mouth?
Oh, this just happened to me this week. So I was having an argument with both of my children were home. My son, I have an older son in college, and I have an 11-year-old. And I don't remember exactly what the argument was about, but I actually used the argument, I carried you in my womb for 9. And it hurt a lot. And I swore I would never use that argument. And there I did. I did it. Yep.
The real question, Julie, is did it work for you?
I don't know. They just rolled their eyes.
Okay. Do you have a childhood book that meant a lot to you that started you on the path to stories?
You know, I've been a voracious reader since I was a child. My mother was a teacher, anywhere from first grade to sixth grade. And so, you know, we had tons of books in the house all the time, and I read everything. You know, as soon as I could read, I was reading. Probably my favorite childhood books were, I love the book Julie of the Wolves, because of course Julie was in the title. And I love Watership Down. That was like one of my all-time favorites. I even still have a copy of it. And, you know, there's so many books that I just absolutely loved as a kid. Nancy Drew and all the Hardy Boy books and Trixie. All those. I read pretty much everything.
Have you ever had a surprising job?
I have had a lot of jobs. I've been a lifeguard and a swim teacher. I've been a digital librarian. I've been a proposal writer. I've been a teacher. I've been a teacher's assistant. I've been a radio journalist. I've actually stood in the White House Press Center. I covered
Oh.
NATO when Czech Republic and Poland joined NATO. I was there and covered that story. So, yeah, I've had a pretty varied career. It's been pretty fun.
Do you use a lot of those in your books?
I do. I actually almost joined the CIA. I was recruited in college for the CIA because I was a Russian language major at the time and really thought I was going to join the CIA and have that be my career. So I was studying Russian language and Soviet and East European studies at the time. And I use that in my books, the knowledge of international affairs, foreign affairs, and also I speak a couple of languages. So that kind of international knowledge, which translated probably the longest part of my career, which was international journalism. So I do use that in all my books because my books, you travel everywhere. You go everywhere and there's international intrigue everywhere. And I do use that background for my stories.
When you said you were recruited by the CIA, my first thought was, what great background for, for writing books. That's probably not what they're going for when they're recruiting employees. But
And I didn't actually join, but I did go through a lot of the process. And, I am familiar with, espionage and, tactics and things like that. So that makes it a little bit more authentic in my writing, which I think is
sure,
helpful.
that's terrific. Do you have a song from your teens or your earlier adulthood or childhood that was kind of your song that had a lot of meaning for you?
I love to listen to music of all kinds when I write, which is, I know a lot of people like it to be really quiet when they write, but I usually have the music blaring when I write. It's when I edit that I have to have everything quiet. But I like so many different kinds of music and every song has some meaning to me or another. So I don't think there's any one particular song, but I do often, I do have a wide variety from, every kind of music. I pretty much like everything, jazz and pop music and country and, even some rap I like. So I'm pretty easy in that department.
So when you're playing the music and you're writing, you play music with lyrics?
Yeah, I do.
Oh.
Yeah.
See, I can't do that because I start typing what they're singing. So I need to have only instrumentals.
A lot of people say that they are like, how do you do that? And I'm like, I don't know. It just stimulates something in my brain that makes me very creative. But when I'm editing and I'm actually, so when I'm just like creating, I don't mind the music with the lyrics and everything. But when I'm actually like editing that work, then it has to be dead silent.
For me, when I'm editing, I hear the words in my head.
Mm-hmm.
So that may be why you can't have other sound coming in.
Yes, exactly.
Especially from your pre-author days. Was there a story that you ever rewrote that because the ending, at least to you, wasn't right? I'm not saying you had to write it all out, but you experienced a story, whether you read it or saw the movie, and you just thought that ending isn't right. I'm changing it, and mentally spun out a different end.
All the time. And that was from a very, very early age. And it was actually something that we all did in my family. I don't think it's a coincidence that all of my sister is also an author, and my brother is probably one of the best writers I know. And I think that's something that we developed as children and then kept going. I always rewrote stories in my head that I thought it should have gone this way. Sometimes I'd see television shows and I think, oh, the writer should have done it this way, or it would have had more impact if the writer had done it this way. I still do it to this day. I still do it. I go see movies and think, what was the writer thinking?
Does that take away some of the fun though?
Sometimes it does but I can't turn it off. So I know I've read a really good book when I can get through the whole book and I haven't thought about how I would change it. So then I know, like, oh, I really like this book. I couldn't think of one thing I would change. So for me, that's sort of the criteria.
Yeah. I once said to a writer that I really enjoyed his books because I forgot that I was a writer. And he was like, really? That's one of the best compliments I've ever gotten, because we know how hard it is to turn that off and to get past that, seeing what's behind the curtain and wanting to change what's behind the curtain. Okay, well, as long as we're talking about stories, I have this odd little desert island where you can have 3 movies. There's equipment to watch the movies, but you can only see 3 evermore. So, what 3 movies would you take?
Oh man.
Mhm.
3 movies. Okay. I guess I'd have to take the original Star Wars movie. Yes, I'm such a Star Wars geek.
Mhm.
And then I would, let's see, what else would I take? I like so many movies. It's hard to say. I guess The Princess Bride would be number 2. Everyone's
Oh,
going to have a laugh. And, besides, you can quote all the lines on that one. And the third one, I don't know. I'm trying to think, what would it be? I guess it might be The Matrix. I would take the first Matrix. Every time you see them, you see something new you didn't see before. So there's a lot of Easter eggs
interesting.
and stuff in Matrix, which I like that kind of looking for stuff. So yeah.
I have to digress here a little bit and tell you if you haven't read it, there is a book and an audiobook by Carrie Elwes, who played the lead
Right.
in The Princess Bride. It is really good. It's really fun. I highly recommend it. I've enjoyed it a lot. Do you have, and if you don't, this may be the end of the interview. Do you have a bad habit word that shows up in your manuscript all the time that you have to take out? I'm saying that because I have many multiples. So I don't know if I trust a writer who doesn't have any. After with all that pressure on you, do you have one, Julie?
Oh my lord, are you kidding? But my favorite, or not so favorite, not favorite, is actually, because actually just needs to be in every sentence because actually it's important. So yeah, actually just kills me all the time. Yeah. And also people nod and sigh way too much in my books, but sighing and nodding, it's just, it's life. So
Yes. I go in and I do word searches and take things out.
mhm.
Do you have any strong fears? And if you do you use them in your books?
Yes, I don't. I have a fear of heights, and my character
Hmm.
in my current long running series, the Lexi Carmichael mystery series, she has a fear of heights too. So I do give her that fear. She doesn't do very well with animals, which I absolutely love animals. So, but kind of a
Uh,
fun thing for her. Whenever she is in contact with an animal, something is going to happen. So it's just kind of the readers kind of expect, oh, here comes the animal. Oh, what's going to happen next? Kind of fun.
have you made her face her fear of heights in every book or a lot of books? Have you sent her up to horrible high places?
Yeah, there's one book called, I think it's the 7th or 8th book, called No Woman Left Behind in the series. She is embedded with a team of Navy SEALs. So you have a geek girl and a group of Navy SEALs that are trying to protect her. What could go wrong? So that is a really funny scene. I often write readers tell me that that's one of the funniest scenes where she has to go out in the parachute. She jumps in tandem with the lead Navy SEAL guy, but it's pretty funny.
This is an opportunity for me to ask you a question that people ask me about because my mystery series, Caught Dead in Wyoming, has a lot of humor in it too. How do you balance that? People are getting killed with humor.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I always try to find places for levity in the stories because my stories can get intense. And so, fortunately, I've created a character who is, socially awkward and physically awkward. And, it lends itself to a lot of opportunities for humorous moments. So that's one part of it. And also, she has a lot of quirks, which also lend themselves to humor. I like the fact that, I try to make sure that it's, she's self deprecating and not laughing at her, laughing at herself, but, humor is hard to write. I mean, let's be honest, you write humor too. Not everyone's going to find you funny. So, you just have to find a good balance between what you think is funny and how well it fits in the middle of all the action or during the action.
Is that something that you feel you've developed as you've come along as a writer? So that's a specific question. And then more in general, you said you published in the early 1990s, and I have you beat. So I've been around even longer. And have you changed and evolved as a writer? Can you look back at when you started and see what you're doing now and what's different?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's night and day. Like, I don't know about you, but I sometimes read my very first book and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like cringing and going, oh no, Um, it's like anything you do, whether you paint or you cook or whatever, your first efforts are always going to be the most exciting, but also, you're going to make the most mistakes because you're learning. So I think, I've evolved tremendously as a writer. I hope for the better, but definitely in ways where I feel much more confident and much more, at ease doing, writing books, basically.
Now, you like I started writing romance, and do you feel that that has an impact on what you're writing now too?
Absolutely. I like to write character driven books. So while my books are
Mm.
very intricate plot wise, they never stray from the importance of the characters. It's always about the characters. So there's, obviously people live lives and there's romance in people's lives. And so that plays a big role. And I feel comfortable handling, relationships and relationships ups and downs as a result of being a romance writer. So it was sort of a seamless experience for me to be able to insert a very comfortable balance of romance and mystery in my series. I feel good about where they come out.
I had somebody tell me once early on that if you didn't have strong characters, you didn't have a book when you were writing romance. And I think that is a great lesson. And I see people who started writing romance who are writing a whole diversity of books now, often in addition to romance. And you can tell because their characters, it's not just and then they did this and then they did that. They have, as you said, lives. They have whole lives, and I really like that. That's what interests me. What makes people tick and how they get along. So here's a weird question for you. I'm in a weird question mood today. If your writing were a color, what color would it be?
My writing was a color. What color would it be? Wow. Okay. All right. Let's see. I guess it would be blue. And I say blue because blue is kind of a and calming color, but it can also be stirred up. It can be stormy at times, and it can also be
Hmm.
so I think blue would cover the spectrum of feelings that you may have in a story, from calm to stormy to maybe a little something in between.
Now, those are the emotions that the reader is having, right? But do you have those same emotions too while you're writing the book?
Absolutely. In fact, last night I just finished writing a scene that made me cry. So,
Oh,
so I figure if I'm not going to feel those feelings, why should I expect the reader to feel those feelings? So, if I'm writing and I'm not getting any feeling at all, then I rewrite the dang thing. I rewrite the paragraph. I'll rewrite the whole book. Because if I don't feel any connection, or I don't feel any emotion coming from the pages, then it's not a book I want to put out.
do these emotions surprise you though? Are they coming unexpectedly, or do you know going in that the story is going to be a certain way and going to elicit certain emotions?
Yeah, I'm a plotter. I basically
Um,
have a big trifold board with full of stickies with this plot point has to go in this scene, and this emotional piece has to go in this scene, and this character has to do this in this scene or whatever. And so I know exactly where I think things need to go. But but sometimes when I'm actually writing the scene in the way I write is it sort of unfolds in my head as a movie, and I'm just typing as fast as I can as the characters are doing whatever they're doing. And sometimes they surprise me by what comes out of their mouth. And I feel like I'm
mm.
just like the medium writing it all down as it's playing out in my head. And so sometimes they say something that chokes me up. And so I know that sounds really weird to anybody who's not a writer, but that's that's how it
Nah,
works.
totally understand. Yeah. So your scenes can surprise you, but how about entire books? Have you had entire books that surprised you?
I don't think surprised me because I'm pretty tight on where everything, what's going to happen and where it's going to go. I have a very well established and well played out character arc and series arc and growth arc, and each book has its own plot within that arc, so it can stand alone. But I know where everything's going, so I don't think any book has surprised me. But some have been funner than others, and some have been harder than others, I guess.
What makes the difference, do you think?
I think part of it is what's going on in my real life. At the same time, that can affect my mood or my attention span, or just the level of how tired I am. That can affect as a book to a certain extent. And then the other is just if the topic is more intense or serious, then that will also affect kind of the tone or emotion of the book.
Can you go back and remembering the writing process? You knew it was tough sledding, but can you go back and see that in the books, or do you think that even though the process might be difficult for you, it doesn't really come through in the books?
I hope that the process doesn't come through in the books. I don't want anything to come through in the books that has to do with process. I want between the pages to be a story, and that's it. I don't want I don't want the reader to have to see anything of the process. So I just want them to get lost in the story and enjoy it.
Well, and we have a reader who has asked, this is her question, where do your stories come from? And she says, I know one author who dreams her stories. Another has a character suddenly taking up residence in her head. So how are your beautiful stories born?
Well, I usually build stories around characters. So right now I'm in the middle of a long series, so that the character has already been created. So when I'm dreaming up a story, it's already for an established character. My typical method of coming up with story ideas is really taking it from real life. There's so much material right now. I mean, I write about a girl hacker, a female hacker, and every time you turn on the news, there's something going on in China and Russia and Korea or wherever. I mean, I have so much material to choose from. Science is just cruising along like crazy on all these fronts that I never have a dearth of information. I mean, I have so many different story ideas that are still in my head, that it's really a pleasure to just go through and say, hey, all right, I kind of feel like this one. Let's go with this. So,
how do you balance that though with technology moving so fast and things changing so much? Do you find that something you wrote is suddenly passe? Do you worry about that, or do you just consider it a moment in time?
Yes, I worry about that. I just did a refresh of the entire Lexi Carmichael series, all 12. Wait, how many books I have in there? 11 books, I think, right now out. And I asked my publisher, who is Carina Press Harlequin, for a refresh, because there was just in the first book, which I wrote back in like 2008, they're using flip phones, right? Well, people are reading that now.
Yeah.
Or CDs or whatever, so I asked them for a refresh. And so I've done the refresh, but it hasn't actually been applied yet. So hopefully, I just got a message yesterday that said they were working on getting all of that updated probably in the next 2 weeks or so. So, and I'm sure that periodically I'm going to go back and do refreshes, but it wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be.
I will just point out that some of us are still using CDs. It's just easier. But okay, and how about research? Because it sounds like you need to do. Not only do you need to research what's happening now, but especially with a character who's a hacker, are you trying to look ahead to what might be coming down the road? And how do you balance that?
Yeah, that's one of the most exciting parts. And that's kind of the stuff that keeps me on fire, because it's so interesting and it's so cool. And I've actually pegged a couple of things that were coming down the line in a book that I wrote in No Strings Attached, book 9, I forget. Anyway, I think it's 8. So I actually wrote a story about Chinese hackers and sort of a cyber detente that was coming up between the two countries. That was kind of the main theme. That was the sort of the plot of the book. And after it came out, there was tons of stuff that came out about, Chinese cyber attacks and how, we'd come to the brink on several.
Mm.
And fans actually wrote me and said, wow, what did you have some insight? Did you have some insight to that? And I'm like, no, it's called being a writer. It's called, what if? And what if happens a lot, in real life. So that's kind of the thing. So a lot of times I do look down the road and I do try to pick up on trends, artificial intelligence, the moving the limbs that, people have now that they can,
Mm.
veterans can operate with their brains now, the limbs that will move, so they don't need they don't need to use like a remote or anything else like that. And there's all kinds of really super cool trends that are now in technology that you can make a really fun book in, and you don't have to make it so high tech that people don't understand it. You can make it exciting and fun and keep it simple so that people can enjoy the idea without getting lost in the science.
Do you have some specific resources that you like for research, like certain magazines or online sites? Or
I have family. I have a nephew that works at Google, and I have his wife works at Yahoo, and my brother, is totally a geek, and my whole family are geeks. Basically, I'm like the least geekiest of everybody in my family, and so I just go to them for questions, and they answer in the best geeky way, and I just like replicate that right into the books because it's just so awesome. So it's really fun.
do they ever want to charge you for being consultants?
I offer them the acknowledgments in the books. And
That's all you
well,
get.
I'll cook them dinner if they come over or whatever. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, they're great. It's a lot of fun. And they really enjoy reading the story and contributing, I think. So it's kind of fun.
So you start off with an idea, usually taken, you said, from things that are happening or might be on the horizon of happening. How do you then turn that into a book? What's your process?
I think about it a lot because my characters are already established. They have established careers and jobs. So it has to be something that will fit in the parameters of the world that I've already created. And it's really not as hard as you might think because technology permeates every job, everything. Every aspect of our lives nowadays, has some technology aspect to it. So it's not that difficult to plug in a concept, especially a tech one, and make it fit into what I need to happen emotionally and growth wise, and also move the series forward. It's just really not that hard.
When you started the series, or well, where you are now with the series, and you look back, are there things where you think, oh Lord, I wish I had not done that? I wish I hadn't put that restriction on the character. And on the flip side, are there things you look at and think, whoa, that has been wonderful?
Yes to both questions.
And share. Tell us what.
Well, I mean, there are certain things that I wrote myself into a corner because I just didn't, that was one aspect I hadn't explored too deeply but basically, if I lock myself in when I'm moving forward, I try to figure out a way around that. I see really quickly if I've done something, like, oh, why did I do that? It just makes it really harder, but I always find a way to get past it. There has been one thing I had to actually go back and adjust because I forgot. It was I guess it was a continuity issue. It was a really small thing. I'm surprised nobody caught it because my readers are they're so in tune with the characters in the books that sometimes when they're talking about the books, I'm like, man, I thought I was being like so subtle, and they're like all over it. So I just had like one little thing that I had to change that just wasn't a continuity thing. And then I've had things happen like in editing process. There was one story, No Strings Attached, where they hotwire a car and then they go park it in a garage. And I had one of the characters giving the valet a fake key, But during the editing process, which took place after I saw the book, somebody thought, oh, what's a fake key? They took the word fake out. And so they have him giving key. And so now I was like, well, how can I give him a key if they hotwire the car? And I'm like, oh my God, you know. So there's those kinds of things that happen, but they're out of your control. So you go back and you try, you fix it, but by that time, especially in the publishing world, not the self-publishing world, but the publishing world, it takes a long time for things to get refreshed and updated. Unlike if self-publishing, you can do it really quickly.
Now, you said you have a second series, right?
I do.
And is that one also with a publisher, or are you indie publishing that?
I'm indie. I stepped my foot. I know it's so exciting. I stepped my foot into indie publishing. The book is actually a young adult female hacker. It's a spin-off of my Lexi Carmichael mystery series. It features a teen character that I introduced in book 10 of the series. And now she has her own series. And so it's basically, again, a very strong female lead, very smart, very into science and computer science and technology and physics and all this kind of stuff. And she also gets mixed up with spies and secret agents and solving mysteries, but also by sort of using your brain. I always say I write female protagonists who save the world one brain at a time.
And now she and Lexi were both in book 10, but will they continue to cross paths?
Yes. In the first book, the two main characters in my Lexi Carmichael series, Lexi and her boyfriend, they appear in the first book of the teen series called White Knights. And so they make a big appearance in the first book. They have roles in there. And then they will come back periodically for additional roles in the books that are coming up. So there will be a lot of crossover, but I figured, I really wanted to try self-publishing, and I have a lot of younger women who are very interested in the series because she's so current, and so it's sort of Nancy Drew updated. That's the new teen series. So that's kind of the angle I was going for.
So you're writing these really strong female characters. How do you approach writing male characters? Is that easy for you? Is it?
It's not hard for me because I, have so many years of writing stories with men and women, multiple points of views. So Lexi Carmichael is written in the first person. And so is the White Knights, except that now in Lexi, starting with the book I'm currently writing, book 11, it has multiple points of view, meaning Lexi is still in the first person, but other characters will have their points of views as well, but they will be third person. And in the White Knights characters in the series, Angel is also, she's the main character in White Knights. She has first person, but the characters who support her have third person points of views. And that's kind of been a shift because I wrote 10 books in the first person, and then I had to move to a first person, third person storyline. But that was a suggestion of my publisher, and I actually like it. It's really challenging me, to kind of move back to that third person, which I hadn't done for a while. And it also adds a different kind of layered texture to the story, which I'm enjoying a lot. And it's important for the way that the stories are developing at this point. So
does it make it harder for you to hide the truth of the mystery?
It doesn't.
Because okay, because I find writing in first person in the mystery, one of the good things is the reader only knows what one person knows, and so they're experiencing the clues along with my character, and I've wondered if going into third person, if you're telling the reader more / so much that they figure things out before the sleuth, and then they think the sleuth is stupid because they haven't caught on.
No, that's a really good point. It's delicate, definitely. But in this particular case, and in the case of the spin-off series, there's multiple mysteries going on. So you have a mystery so let's take the young adult story. You have a mystery that's taking place for that book, but there's also a series mystery that's being across several books. So the series mystery is being more or less taken care of by the third person points of view, while the mystery that will be resolved in the book as it is right now, that's being taken care of by the first person.
Oh, that's really interesting. Now, is the series mystery going to cover the entire series, or are you going to have multiples? Maybe 3 or 4 books, and then a new kind of series mystery, and for the next 3 or 4 books.
For the YA, the series mystery will stretch to the very end. So it can go as long as I need it to go. And in the Lexi Carmichael series, this series, the reason that I'm having the extra points of views, that will be resolved in probably 2 books. So that's different for that series.
It's a good thing you're organized, Julie, to keep all that straight and going. Right. A reader asked, and I'll address this in a bit, said that if you miss the characters and think about them once you've finished a book, clearly this reader does feel that way. And I know you're doing continuing characters, especially with Lexi, but with the teen, did the teen spinoff come about because you liked that character so much, or did you go into that initial book where that character showed up with the idea that there'd be a spinoff?
Well, it's kind of interesting because when the Lexi Carmichael series was launched, it was very out of the box. I mean, I actually was writing for Kensington at the time, and Kate Duffy, I don't remember Kate Duffy, but very well known author, her editor. She was my editor, and I told her I wrote this book about this female hacker, and she read it and she said, "Damn, I love that book." You can just imagine Kate. But she said, I took it to marketing and they say, I don't know what to do with it, because they don't know what to do with it, because who wants to read a book about a female hacker? And she said, I think they're wrong, but I can't get them to give me the green light for this book. But she said, save it and, try it somewhere else. And then she died like a couple of years after that. And then Harlequin came around with their new like digital press, which was Carina Press. And they said, look, Carina said, we're looking for books that are not in the box. We're looking for books out of the box. I'm like, well, out of the box, that's me. So I sent it in, and it sold in less than 24 hours. And it was like, my editor always teases me, it's the fastest acquisition Carina ever made. And
that's wonderful.
And then 13 books later, I guess people really do want to read about a female hacker. So I guess, maybe that's not so bad. But I guess the point being is that, I forgot now. What was I forgot where I was going with this. What was the original?
Oh, whether you went with the into that book 10 with the expectation of setting up a spinoff, or whether the spinoff came, whether the character sort of said, hey, I need my own story.
Right.
Were you planning it, or did it occur?
I was not planning it originally. But what happened was the book took off. The Lexi Carmichael book took off, and it was very popular. But we were hitting the market, which was about 30 to 65, and she's 25 in the story, so we were missing the younger market somehow. We weren't hitting it. So then they decided they would revamp the covers, because before we had like silhouettes on the cover, and we made them with a live model who looked younger, and we made the covers all different colors, and we tried to make it more attractive to the younger market. And it really took off, but interestingly enough, it took off around teens, which we weren't that low. And so the fact that, then I started getting mail from teachers that were saying, wow, do you have any recommendations for any books about the same kind of character, but who's a teen? And I thought, well, people are writing me asking for this kind of, for these books. And I really didn't have any suggestions. I thought, well, there's an opportunity. There's a dearth of material here for strong STEM focused women. In teens, I could fill that void. And so I decided to write the spinoff. And then I just decided to do it myself. So I thought that would be cool.
Now, you mentioned the covers and changing the covers. And a reader has asked that when the cover image doesn't match the character description, and the reader says it's a pet peeve of hers, how does it feel for the author?
I don't like that at all either. Like I want not to be able to see anybody's face. But I don't control marketing, and marketing, they have experienced people who know supposedly what people like in general, and can sell the most books. And so in that case, it's out of my hands. So you're not going to be able to please every author, then you won't be able to please every reader with a cover. And since it's out of my control, the only thing I can control is what's inside between the pages. So that's what I focus on, and I try not to obsess too much over the covers.
Very sane. That's one of the reasons I like indie publishing, though, because I get to obsess about everything. That suits me. Okay, here's a question from a reader that I think is absolutely fascinating. If you could work with any author, or live or dead, who would you choose and why?
Wow, no pressure. Wow. That's a great question. I think I would have to say Mary Stewart, which is, and she's an older writer. I mean, I just think her use of language and her careful unraveling of plots and stories are so exquisite that I think as a writer under her tutelage, versus co-writing, I guess we would be co-writing, but she'd basically tell me what to do, would be really fascinating. And I just think she is such a magnificent and interesting writer, and the way her prose flows and the way her plots always unfold, it's just really, really exquisite. That's just the best way I could say it.
That's a great choice. And sort of connected to that, what do you read for fun?
I read everything. I'm like one of those people who just, can't stop reading anything. I'll read from, mystery to horror to young adult to romantic suspense to straight up romance. I think the only thing I don't read straight up is erotica. And it's not that I have anything against it. It's just, not my cup of tea. But and I don't read a lot of um, nonfiction. I read some nonfiction. I read the story, I Am Mala, the girl who wanted to go to school in Afghanistan. It's just a
Oh,
fascinating book. And I occasionally read other nonfiction books. Like I read several of the military history for some reason I really like. Maybe because I come from a military family. But yeah, so I'll read those. But mostly, I mean, I'll just read if anyone tells me it's a good book, I don't care what genre it's in. I'm going to go read it, especially people, friends and stuff who recommend books to me. So I like fantasy. I love science fiction. I mean, it's just, I like everything.
let's kind of apply that to the process. What's your favorite part of the process, and what's your least favorite?
I think my favorite part is when it's done. So, there's the initial part where it's, you get the first rush. Well, it's really exciting and you know where the book wants to go.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so, it's just, there's something really exhilarating about sitting started.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard. It's hard to get those words out. It's hard to get those words down. You have to put your butt in the chair every day and write those words. It's not going to write itself, unfortunately. And and then the editing process is for me easier than the sort of vomit it all on the page part. But I think when it all comes together, when it's done, when you see the finished piece, most writers, by the time you're getting to the end, you hate the book because you've spent so much time with it and you've been wrestling it and fighting it and working with it, and you're punching back and forth. It's almost like you're in a wrestling match with this thing. But when you finally get it all prettied up and ready, it feels really good, and you look at that and say, wow, I wrote that. So that's kind of, for me, that's kind of the best part.
Do you go back? You talked about your first book, but how about the Lexi series? Do you go back and reread those?
I do sometimes. I do mostly because I'm for continuity issues. Like, what did I say? And then sometimes I get caught up in the story. Like, oh yeah, and I keep reading it. So I do sometimes read the books. go back and read the books and do that. The one thing I can't do, which I just cannot do it, I don't know why, but I have a really hard time listening to my books on audio. And the whole series is on audio. And the woman, the actress, the voice actress who does the book is wonderful. She's fantastic as Lexi. I think she does a great job. But it's like something about hearing the words from my head being read aloud. It just kind of freaks me out. Hard for me
That's interesting.
in audio. I get really fidgety and I just can't take it anymore.
I'm trying to think how I react. I love my narrator who's doing the Caught Dead in Wyoming mystery books because, like yours, it's first person. So that narrator has got to have the right feel and the right voice. And mine is wonderful. Her name's Jane McLaughlin. Once in a while, I will say, hey, wait a minute, you missed. You missed a beat here. That was a joke. You need to hit this point or that word a little harder. But really, very rarely, she is so good. But yeah, I don't like proofing them. I feel the same way. I have someone else proof them reading with the manuscript in front of them. Actually, two people who do that for me. And then I listen to them like a listener would because it's kind of squirmy is how I feel listening to them.
Yes.
Okay, a reader also asks, what is your favorite place to write and why? And do you have an inspirational view? I think she's sort of hoping we do.
I actually write in my office. I didn't used to have an office. I used to have an office in my bedroom, which is basically a desk in my bedroom, which I hated having to be able to work and sleep in the same space. But because I had a small house, that was the best we could do. And now I live in Fairfax and I actually have a whole room dedicated to my office, which I really love. And so I do my day job here, but I also do my writing here at the same place. And so I have a laptop, but I also have a big screen where I put the book up and I can see it in really big letters, which I really like. My view is actually a wall, but it does have my book covers on it. And this past Mother's Day, my son, both of my sons, I should say, they cut out letters and huge big letters on cardboard and colored cardboard. And they put, "I love you, Mom," on my wall, right on my computer. So, and then Happy Mother's Day. So I still just keep that there year round because it's just so precious to me. So I see that every day and it inspires me.
So you do have an inspirational view.
I do.
Is it difficult to switch from the day job to the writing or the writing to the day job when you're in the same place like that?
It's hard just because I'm tired. So I work all day and then I take care of my kids' homework and dinner and basketball practice or karate or Boy Scouts or whatever. And then, get him into bed. My older one's at college, so just the younger one. And then I have to sit down to write. So that's why for me, the board, the trifold board with all the stickies on it is really helpful because I'm tired. And when I sit down, I just go and grab the stickies for the next scene. I don't have to sit there and think, okay, now where was I in the story and what was happening? I already know because it's time for the next set of stickies. And I pull those down and I know exactly what has to go in that scene. And even if I'm tired, I can get that scene written and then, fix it up later. But at least the words are on the page for an editing process later. And that has really saved me a lot of time.
I could see that the music could also help. It would, juice you up, get your blood flowing, and keep you going. Yeah. Your process then is that you plot out ahead of time.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Is there a particular way that you do that? How you approach the story?
I do. I plot out everything all the way to the end. I don't write one single word until everything is plotted in stickies to the end. So I usually plot the story first, like what's going to happen in this book, what's the plot, and then I plot the character growth. Okay, what's going to happen to who emotionally wise in this story, and then I put that on a different sticky. And then, who are the supporting characters that have to have a scene or have to have a role, and where do they go? And so I put those on a different color sticky, and I put that kind of stuff in there. And then I'm ready. Then it's more or less plotted all the way to the end. That helps me, and I can move the stickies around. Like when I'm plotting it, I'm like, no, 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 that scene's not in the right place. So I just pull the stickies, and put it in the other place. So it's super simple to move everything around, and it gives me a lot of fluidity and stuff like that. When I first started writing, I was super linear. I was like, I cannot write out of order. I can't do this. And as I go along now as a writer, I'm much more confident in writing scenes out of order and then ordering them later. I think that comes with a certain amount of practice and also confidence in your skills as being able to see the big picture in your head.
And knowing the characters too, I think that helps.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've always written out a sequence.
I wish I would have. I really wish I would have earlier, but I was just so set that it has to be in order, and now I wish, why did I do that for so long? Now it's so much easier to do it this way.
I'm just about opposite of you. I'm very much a pantser. One of the things that always catches me is people say, oh, it's so much faster if you plot. But they're not counting the time they spent plotting before they started writing. They're just comparing their writing time to my entire process. That's not fair. I want a recount.
Right. One time, actually, I think it was for the fourth book, No Place Like Rome, they actually published it was still in track changes.
Oh, no.
They got it down pretty fast, but I went out to X amount of people, and a lot of people called back and complained about it. So you know what? It really doesn't. People are human. I maybe made a mistake, and maybe somebody missed it, or maybe somebody fixed it and it was wrong the way they fixed it. I am not. I'm pretty laid back. Like people are human. People are going to make mistakes. I think everybody does the best they can. And if there's a lot of mistakes, then I might ask for another copyright, another copy editor, or another proofreader. If I think I've done that once before when there was just just too many errors. But otherwise, there's gonna be mistakes. That's the way it works. Hopefully they're not big ones, and hopefully it's not a lot of them. But I'm pretty laid back about it. I'll ask if I catch it, I'll ask them to fix it. Or some reader, which I don't mind, brings it to my attention, I'll pass it on to Harlequin to fix.
Well, let's talk about your interactions with readers. You said sometimes they'll let you know if there's been an error. What other sorts of interactions have you had? Do you have a favorite story?
I have the greatest readers. I just have so much fun. I have a small readers group that was formed by fans in South Africa, and they created, and I keep saying, I said, don't you want to change the name of the group, like Julie's Readers Group? But they have it, the Julie Moffett Fan Club, which I always cringe when I hear that, because it just seems strange, but they're so wonderful. And I actually use that in book 10 of my Lexi series. She has people that create a Lexi Carmichael fan club, and she just freaks out about that. So it actually gave me great fodder for the book. But anyway, so she... so I have a great group of readers, and we have a lot of fun, and I have, do a lot of stuff on my Facebook pages and Instagram and everything. But I did just this last weekend, I was at the Nova Teen Festival here in Northern Virginia. And a fan came all the way down from Maryland in a wheelchair to visit me and have me sign books. And it was it was kind of a difficult place for her to get in and out. And, she came all that way just to see me. And she gave me this really nice note that just said how much my books meant to her and got her chronic pain, and that it just made her life so much better. And I was just like, oh, that just really touched me. And so anytime I get stories like that people are reading my books in the hospital and laughing out loud or something like that, it makes all the difference.
Oh, that's wonderful. Those are wonderful encounters, and what a terrific reader. Okay, let's see. What have I missed? Anything that I should have asked you that I haven't? Or is there something you would like to answer that I haven't asked you yet? Something more you would like to say?
No, I think you asked everything, and even some really Well, fun questions too. I really appreciate you having me here. It was so much fun, and I just loved
Oh,
every
we're
time.
not done. We're not done. So tell us about your next book coming out.
So the last book that came out was book 10, which is really book 11 because one book is a novella and they call it 2.5. But it technically is book 10, and it's called No Regrets, and it came out in January, and it's the 10th book in the Lexi Carmichael series. And the White Knights book, which is the first book in the YA, came out in December of 2017. So they came out December and January, two books in a row. So yeah, those are my latest two books.
And do you have any other titles coming up later in 2018?
The second book in the White Knights series, the YA, is called Night Moves, and that's going to be out in fall 2018. And then the next book in the Lexi Carmichael series, No Stone Unturned, is going to be a January 2018 release from Harlequin.
So if somebody has not read any of your books, where would be the best place to start?
It depends on what they want. If they want just a fun, adventurous mystery, and that they'll be able to dive right into, they can pick up any of the books because all of the books will stand alone. If they really want to get a feel for character development over this series, then they should start at the first one, which is No One Lives Twice. And then you start there, and you can binge read all the way to the end, and you will get the full experience of the series and the character arcs.
Do you have any books that even your loyal fans might have missed? I think of some of mine as little orphan books that haven't been read as much. Do you have any like that? Or maybe not because you're in a strong series, but I'll give you a shot. Do you have any that you'd like to tell people about?
Do. I actually have I have several books. I got two books back from Dorchester or Leisure when I wrote for them. Actually, I got four books back from Leisure. Two of them I sold to Amazon Montlake. They were time travel romances, which you may remember were super hot back in the 90s. And my publisher asked me to write two time travel books. Actually, she asked me to write a time travel book. And then I got tons of fan mail. So I wrote a sequel, even though I hadn't been planning on it. So I have two time travel books that I sold to Montlake. And so those are out there. And the first one's called A Double-Edged Blade, and the second one's called Across a Moon-Swept Moor. And then I had a couple books with and then another Dorchester book was a Scottish historical romance called The Thorn and the Thistle, and that's out there now in digital. And with Kensington, I had a novella about a governess, a Scottish governess, or actually she's English, he's Scottish, called Her Kilt-Clad Rogue. Then I have a series that I put out by Kensington, but I got the rights back to, and I've put out, my sister actually put it out for me. And that's called, it's a trilogy about three sisters who are descendants of Salem witches, and it's called The Fire Weaver, the Seer, and the Healer. Those are out there. So those are my other books that may not be as well known.
That's terrific. And where can people find out more about you and about these books?
If they can find that my website, it's www.juliemoffett, JULIEMOFFETT.com, or they can check out my author page on Amazon. That's there too. My books are sold across all platforms.
And we will put the URLs for the website and more things for Julie in the show notes, just in case some of you out there aren't taking notes while you're listening to the podcast. And that way you can click on them. But now we're going to have my very favorite part, the either or rapid fire questions. Let's see what we get from these. Heels or slippers?
Slippers.
Paper plates or best china?
Paper plates.
Appetizer or dessert?
Dessert.
Cake or ice cream?
Ice cream.
House decorating or gardening?
Neither.
Okay, but it's going to be organized, even if you're not decorating or gardening, right?
You're right.
Pickup truck or sports car?
Pickup truck.
Hiking boots or cowboy boots?
Cowboy boots.
A cruise or a trekking vacation?
Cruise.
Hot air balloon or train trip?
Oh God, no hot air balloon. I don't like heights. Train all the way.
Okay.
No.
But how would you feel about going underground then? What if I said train trip or spelunking?
I don't mind spelunking. I don't have a problem in caves,
Okay. Cat or dog?
Both.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Nail polish or bare nails?
Bare nails.
And the last one, save the best for last or grab the best first?
Save the best for last.
That's terrific. Thank you so much, Julie. This has been a lot of fun. It's been great to catch up with you. And to the listeners, hope you'll come back next week to hear another author who enjoys telling you about their books. And we will have another edition of Authors Love Readers podcast. Goodbye for now. That's the show for this week. Hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for joining Authors Love Readers podcast. Remember, you can always find out more about our guest authors in the show notes, and you can find out more about me at www.patriciamclinn.com. You can also send in questions to be asked of future authors at podcast@authorslovereaders.com. Until next week, wishing you lots of happy reading. Bye.